My wife took out a nude loan. When the debt collector came to her door with photos of her taking off her clothes, I just found out she was hiding it from me. I owe a huge amount of money that can bankrupt me. I decided to save her. But when I collect the money, found out that she had already slept in her creditor's bed. I came home from get off work that day. My neighbor looked at me very strangely, afraid of avoiding it. When I went upstairs, I discovered that the front door of my house had been splashed with red paint. Debt repayment. For big characters. Shocking. Seeing the door ajar, I quickly walked in. A few very social men. Still at my home. Looking around for something. I'm anxious. Stand at the door. Asked loudly at the top of his lungs. Who are you? Why did you break into my house privately? But it's illegal. Then go call the police. A man with flowery arms holds a photo. Thrown towards me. Is this your wife? She owes us money. Sell everything in your house. It's not even enough to pay off her debt. Impossible. I denied it directly without even thinking about it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the woman in the photo with black hair and a shawl. Wrapped in strands of hair. Holding ID card. His eyes were full of panic and shame. That is my wife Yang Chanqian. 3 million gives you 3 days. The flower-armed man stepped forward. Patted my face hard. Warned harshly. I can't take it out. I will let this photo of your wife appear in all your family members. On a friend's phone. Even on the big screen in the square. My head is pounding. It feels like my whole body has been drained of energy. Looking at this group of people dully. Move things out of the house bit by bit. The originally cozy 2-bedroom apartment became empty. Until these people left. My brain is still blank. I don't know how long it has been. Finally, tremblingly, I took out my phone. Dial my wife Yang Chanqian's number. Wife. I just spoke. Yang Chanqian's sweet voice came from the other end of the phone. Husband. I'm at mom's place and will go back soon. What to eat at night? The tone is the same as usual. Nothing strange. My heart is like a knife. Taking a deep breath and asked. Wife. Do you owe money? There was silence on the other side of the phone. After a while. Yang Chanqian said with a trembling voice. You know it all. You really got it. I asked again in disbelief. Get the exact answer. I feel as if my internal organs are being burned by fire. My whole heart is broken into pieces. Husband. You listen to my explanation. I'll go back right away. Yang Chanqian's anxious voice came from the mobile phone. I smiled bitterly. Holding back tears, he said. Good. I'm waiting for you. Hang up the phone. My eyes are dull. Staring out the window blankly. The sun is just right in the evening. Warm and bright. I feel like the whole world is dark. I can't believe it. At school. My gentle and virtuous one. Considerate woman. How dare you do such a thing that violates your moral bottom line behind my back? Yang Chanqian will be back soon. After she entered the house, she walked towards me with her head lowered. When he got close to him, he knelt down. Husband. As soon as she opened her mouth, I interrupted sharply. When did this happen? As he spoke, he threw the nude photo directly in her face. Husband. You can hit me or scold me. You must not let me go. Yang Chanqian took a look. Then he started crying and begging me. The appearance of pear blossoms with rain. Pitiful. I asked angrily. How else do I want you? These 3 million. I can't even get enough of it even if I try to sell it. Heard this. Yang Chanqian wiped her tears. Instead, he scolded me angrily. Wang Ji. You heartless thing. I didn't borrow this money because of you. Have you forgotten that your mother was seriously ill and needed 20,000 yuan for surgery? I took it. Yang Chanqian stood up and pointed at my nose. Cursed. If not for me. Your mother is dead a long time ago. My heart trembles. Looking at Yang Chanqian's red eyes. My thoughts go back to 3 years ago. At that time, I had just graduated and my job had not been regularized yet. With a salary of less than 3,000 yuan. I can barely afford the rent in Betrayal. My mother had a heart attack at that time. Need surgery. No matter how I collect it, I'm still short of 20,000 yuan. I'm trying to be tough. Borrow from friends everywhere. But I touched the dust on my nose. In the end, it was the 20,000 yuan that Yang Qianqian got. Didn't I return it to you after I became a regular employee? Most of your anger has dissipated. The momentum of his speech has also weakened a lot. Yang Qianqian became aggressive instead. Accuse. When did you become a regular employee? 20,000 yuan. Do you know how much the interest is? The interest is 500,000. What do you want me to give you? You can't afford it. Won't you tell me? I immediately retorted. If I had paid it back then, I wouldn't owe 3 million now. You still. Yang Qianqian turned around. He pointed at the house and said, you earn some money and keep it at home. No deposit at all. Okay now. Still nothing left. At this moment, Yang Qianqian and I seem to have reversed our positions. Doing something wrong. As if it's not her. But I am the same. If you had told me then. I just want to work more jobs. I will also try my best to help you pay it back. I shook my head. Sigh hard. Now I owe 3 million. Even if I risk my life, I can't stop it. What a hole you are. It's too late to say anything now. Yang Qianqian sat next to me. Complained in a low voice. If your parents hadn't been sick all the time. I've already gone out to work. I made $500,000 in a movie based on my beauty. But who knew your parents had been delaying it for 3 years? In the past 3 years, I have been anxious. There is no way it could have caused such a result. Is it my fault alone? Yang Qianqian started crying as she spoke. I'm speechless. My heart began to waver. It seems like this. I have long been blamed. Since school. Yang Qianqian has a dream. I want to be an actor after graduation. If you go out on your own, you can afford a nanny. Nor will it hinder my wife from taking care of her parents. Watching Yang Qianqian crying, she was out of breath. My heart is like a knife. He reached out to hold her back. Right. It can't be that I'm dragging you down. Yang Qianqian sobbed and shook her head, and said to Wang Ji, I have followed you and I have never regretted it. But you can't abandon me just because I owe money. At worst, we will sell the house and have nothing. I am also willing to accompany you to make a comeback. I felt guilty and moved, pursed my lips and shook my head and said, even if I sell this house, I won't be able to raise 3 million, and it will always be a big hole. Yang Qianqian lowered her head and was silent for a moment, then thought about it and said, why don't you sell your parents' house as well? No. I refused without thinking, my parents are old and can't afford the trouble. Let's sell the house. Where do they live? A nursing home? Qianqian answered directly without even thinking about it, no, absolutely not. I couldn't help shaking my head, I have been busy with work after graduation, and I haven't been back home much. Now I have sold my parents' house and given it to them. Going to a nursing home, what's going on? Yang Qianqian's face fell, and she said in frustration, then what do you think we should do? I calmed down a lot at this time, and after thinking about it, I said, let's call the police. We still have to pay back the money, but at least it won't be that much if we call the police. Even if you don't have to sell your parents' house by then, it's okay. After hearing this, Yang Qianqian's expression immediately changed, and she stood up and said, what's the matter? Wang Ji and the others have my photos and videos, and they will never let me go if you call the police. Who knows where they will spread this? I darkened my face again and asked, what was captured in the video? Yang Qianqian's eyes dodged and she quickly changed the subject, if word about Wang Ji gets out, my future will be ruined. I took a deep breath and rubbed it. I rubbed my sore forehead, thinking that I might see Yang Qianqian on those websites in the future, which made me feel even more uncomfortable. With the development of network data, if it were uploaded, Yang Qianqian's dream of becoming a star would be completely destroyed. I was silent, and Yang Qianqian knelt down again, hugged my leg and cried, Wang Ji, please help me. Even if I work as a horse for your family in the future, I will never complain. She pulled up and said, okay, then get up quickly. It's not entirely your fault. I'll go back to see my parents tomorrow. That night, Yang Qianqian and I slept on a bed with only wooden boards left. I stayed up all night sitting on the edge of the bed, smoking cigarettes one after another. My wife did this kind of thing, and I became extremely upset. I always felt like there was something burdensome and a high wall had been built in my heart. But then I thought that my wife had sacrificed herself and embarked on that path for me, so I could only endure all the unpleasantness, study with my wife, and bear the burden together. The next day, I got on the bus back to my hometown. Looking at the alpine farmland outside the window, my wife and I had mixed feelings. In order to support my education, my parents had to go out of this mountain and endured a lot of hardships, which was when the root cause of my illness came down. After I finished my studies, I failed to repay them and take them out of this mountain. Following the route in my memory, I found my way home. The road is that old courtyard. Over the years, not a single brick has been replaced. The room was filled with the choking smell of smoke and decay, which made me feel suffocated. Pushing the door open, the light in the room was dim, and the furnishings in the room could only be vaguely distinguished. Everything is the same as before, but it gives me a sense that things are right and people are different. Mom and Dad. I shouted. There was a noise from the kitchen, and my father limped out on crutches. Is it Xiaoji? Looking at my father's old appearance and stooped figure, my nose felt sour and tears almost came out. Dad, what's wrong with your legs? I supported my father's trembling body and helped him sit slowly on the chair. Hey, it's an old problem. It's okay. My father patted the back of my hand. Go and see your mother. I've got poison in the kitchen and she'll be fine soon. I walked towards the bedroom full of guilt and pushed away. There is a wooden table next to the door, and my mother is sitting next to it. She was wearing blue cloth that had been washed white, her hair was gray, her cheeks were sunken, and she looked very haggard. Mom, I'm sorry, I said in a low voice. My mother raised her head and glanced at me, her eyes filled with love and concern, and she stood up slowly. Silly boy, come here quickly and let Mom take a look. I haven't seen you for so long, and you've lost weight again. The tip of my nose felt sour, and I hurriedly said he walked over, hugged his mother and cried. Don't be sad, wait until your dad prepares the meal, and we will have a good meal. My mother comforted me while caressing my head. I wiped the tears from my eyes and regained my composure. At dinner, my dad brought 3 bowls of noodles and put them on the table. Only my bowl had an egg. Looking at such a poor dinner, I felt even more bitter. These days, there are people who are reluctant to eat eggs. These people are my parents. I held back my tears and asked, Mom and Dad, do you want to live in the city? After hearing my question, the elder's expression changed. My dad was silent, lowering his head and picking at the noodles in the bowl. My mother's eyes filled with tears and she nodded and said, follow Xiaoji's arrangements. I forced a smile and told them about the many benefits of the city. It wasn't until the end of dinner that my dad, who had been silent all this time, said, Xiaoji, are you in any trouble? I looked at my dad in a panic, and for a moment I didn't know how to answer. How old are you? You are our child. How could we parents not know if something happens to you? My mother smiled and got up and went back to the bedroom. When she came out again, she had a small book in her hand. Mom, this. I looked at the housebook in front of me and couldn't hold back the tears anymore. My mother sighed, handed me the housebook, patted my shoulder, and said softly, silly boy, why are you crying? Mom believes you will get better. I wiped away my tears and nodded hard. This night, I stayed in my hometown. I had almost no sleep all night, and secretly vowed to work hard to repay my parents. Early the next morning, I packed my parents' luggage and left with them. The neighbors around me pointed at me. Some said I had lost my job, while others said I came back only after hearing the news about the demolition. I forgot all about it, picked up my parents in the car, and left here far away. After entering the city, I placed them in a nursing home, even choosing the cheapest one. Before leaving, I knelt in front of them and promised with red eyes, Mom and Dad, please wait here for me for a while. Once you have the money, I will take you out immediately. From now on, my son will personally serve you. I didn't dare to tell them the truth, so I could only comfort them with lies, hoping they would believe me. I'm afraid they will feel uncomfortable knowing the truth. With a feeling of guilt, I left the nursing home and immediately went to the real estate agency with my housebook. The agent said that the house was too old and difficult to sell. Even if it was listed for sale online, it would not be sold in a short period of time. The agent asked me to get a mortgage or borrow some money from a bank. I thought about it for a long time and decided to mortgage the house first. After all, there was no more time for me to think about it. He also told the intermediary that if someone came to buy it, he would sell it for the price. After hearing all this, I quickly returned to the company to work, for fear that I would delay my work, lose my job, and lose the chance to turn around. He even worked overtime until early in the morning just to make more money to pay off his debts. At dawn, I was getting ready to get off work, but I received a call from the agent, you guys are really lucky. Someone inquired about that shabby house so quickly. But it's too early now, and I can't help you. Let's talk. I'll send you the address, and you can go over and talk to the buyer about whether you can sell it. It depends on your ability. Listening to the obviously angry words of the agent on the phone, I was surprised and happy, and said hurriedly, "Okay, you can send me the location. If the negotiation is successful, I will not miss you a penny in the agency fee." When I paid the agency fee, the tone on the phone became much better. After I hung up, I received an address on my phone. Regardless of my fatigue, I quickly took a taxi and rushed over. The car stopped in front of a nightclub. As dawn approaches, many beauties and young men dressed in hot clothes come out of the door. As soon as I got closer, I could smell a strong smell of alcohol. I was afraid that they would get drunk and go crazy, so I waited until they were almost gone before walking towards the door. As soon as I arrived at the door, I was stopped by the security guard at the door.